Could Sasha Banks be headed to AEW? A new AEW Dynamite is coming at the beginning of next year. Why didn't Ring of Honor get a television deal? An update on William Regal's AEW contract. A new AEW Streaming Deal is coming soon. We've got the ratings for the Holiday Bash edition of AEW Dynamite. Hikaru Shida versus Jamie Hayter. The internal reaction to those fantastic matches. Miro calls out Dave Meltzer. An update on Adam Cole's current injury status. Michael Mansory details his goals in AEW. Eddie Kingston calls out the AEW roster. Dax Howard shoots on CM Punk. Parker Boudreaux, what's his status with an AEW faction? The Casino Trios Royale match happens on AEW Rampage last night. Matches are announced for New Year's Smash. New pay-per-view trademarks are filed by AEW, and the latest on Jeff Hardy's legal situation. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As you can just tell right there with that intro, there are plenty of news stories to get into in the world of All Elite Wrestling. And let's start off talking about the boss, Sasha Banks, Mercedes Varnado. What is the latest with her and All Elite Wrestling? We know she's headed to New Japan Pro Wrestling, but what about All Elite Wrestling? Well, Sasha Banks is one of professional wrestling's hottest commodities right now. Upon reports of Banks' exit from WWE, the multi-time women's champion has attracted much attention as her wrestling bookings are set to open back up on January 1st of 2023. While she's reportedly locked in for a series of appearances with New Japan Pro Wrestling Stardom, another exciting possibility has emerged as well. 1 week after Banks' reportedly planned appearance at Wrestle Kingdom 17, AEW returns to Los Angeles for AEW Dynamite on January 11th, with an open spot for a possible surprise return or debut. After defeating Britt Baker at Full Gear last month, Saraya now pivots to tag team action. She must recruit a partner to do battle by her side as they take on Baker and current AEW Women's World Champion Jamie Hayter. While the identity of Saraya's partner remains a mystery at this time, speculation has pinpointed Banks as a possible option, as Saraya and Banks have memorable history together from their time in WWE. The Wrestling Observer newsletter can't yet confirm if that will be the case. However, if it was, quote, it could be kept secret from almost everyone. As the aforementioned episode of Dynamite approaches, Dave Meltzer believes, quote, they'd push the Los Angeles match more each week before finally unveiling the true identity of Saraya's partner. That is, of course, if Banks is indeed booked. Several AEW talents were recently reported to be excited about the possibility of the boss landing in their territory. Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select added that one source regarded Banks' real name Mercedes Varnado as another potential anchor for the women's division, with a high likelihood of Banks increasing their television ratings if signed. Now, again, we don't know, we don't have confirmation, but it must be said, I don't think it's a coincidence that the women main evented this week's episode of Dynamite. They should, and it's good that they did. We've got the very latest on the ratings for that and the internal reaction. But I believe this is setting the stage. Putting the women where they deserve to be in the main event. Reason why is becoming they've arguably got the biggest name that they've ever signed to the women's division coming in, that being Sasha Banks. I believe that it will be Sasha Banks on January 11th in the Kia Forum at AEW Dynamite in Los Angeles. I believe that will be the case. Again, this is not a scoop. This is my belief, and I do think Banks will indeed be All Elite. But as far as her New Japan Pro Wrestling appearances go for Wrestle Kingdom 17, Sasha Banks, who is now going by her real name of Mercedes Varnado, is believed to currently actually be in Japan ahead of her rumored appearance at Wrestle Kingdom 17 in January. However, that is something that neither New Japan Pro Wrestling nor Stardom has advertised or announced. The reasoning behind this, according to the Wrestling Observer newsletter, is that they want her appearance to be a surprise on the night, even though it's the worst kept secret in professional wrestling at this point. Now, Varnado's reported New Japan appearance was leaked a while back, so it won't come as a shock to many wrestling fans who watched the event. Right now, however, she's supposedly in Japan to market herself in the country ahead of the big show. While the decision can be changed to pre-announce her, that isn't the plan as of right now. It is unknown what type of role Varnado is going to have on the show and whether or not she'll be ending up getting physical in any capacity. However, her time with WWE reportedly ended back in the summer, freeing her up to work elsewhere, even though her profile remains on the active section of WWE.com. The company hasn't made an official announcement about her status since she and Naomi walked out of a Monday Night Raw taping due to creative differences with officials, that being, of course, with Vince McMahon and John Laurinaitis. Wrestle Kingdom we'll see Kairi defend her IWGP Women's Championship against Tam Nakano, which is expected to be how Venado ends up debuting for the company. Meanwhile, there also, as I mentioned, has been talk of her potentially competing for AEW as Soraya's mystery partner on the January 11th episode of AEW Dynamite, but that remains to be seen. So, of course, if we get any more information about Banks' status with possibly All Elite Wrestling, we'll let you know here on the channel. But speaking of Dynamite in the new year, a new Dynamite is coming soon. You can see around me. Oh, Owen, the set has changed. That's because AEW Dynamite is changing. We've got the first look at what this new AEW Dynamite is going to look like last night on AEW Rampage on TNT. All Elite Wrestling is now boldly promoting the changes coming to its flagship program. During the Friday night episode of Rampage on TNT, viewers saw a commercial for a new Dynamite that will launch in the new year. The 15-second spot features updated promotional footage of many of the company's top stars, including The Acclaimed, Britt Baker, Chris Jericho, Death Triangle, FTR, Jade Cargill, Jamie Hayter, Jon Moxley, Ricky Starks, Saraya, Tony Storm, Wardlow, and the Young Bucks over a background of flashing lights and lasers. Text on screen proclaims there will be a new Dynamite in the new year. The ad closes by specifically pointing to the episode on Wednesday, January 4th. The January 4th Dynamite will emanate from the Climate Pledge Arena in Seattle, Washington. It is the company's debut in the Pacific Northwest. Already, Ricky Starks has challenged Chris Jericho to a match on that show. Rumblings about changes to Dynamite first started surfacing just over a week ago, and more recently, Tony Khan confirmed that both Dynamite and Rampage will be getting new looks. The changes coincide with the arrival of Mike Mansory as AEW's new Senior Vice President and co-executive producer. Mansory is WWE's former Vice President of Global Television Production, and he recently shared part of his vision for AEW in an episode of The Sessions with Renee Paquette. We are going to talk about that later on in the show, but Mansory was reportedly held in high regard in WWE and was viewed internally as the number 2 person behind Kevin Dunn, the executive producer of all WWE programming. However, Mansory left WWE in 2020 after he realized he wasn't going to be getting Kevin Dunn's job, but that's the first peek at what this new look of Dynamite is going to look like. Of course, if we get any more looks, any more details, any more images, we'll speak about it here in a future video. Ring of Honor is going to have a big year in 2023, but one thing they don't have is a television deal, but they will be having regular weekly television once again, but it's going to be on their streaming service, Honor Club. Now, further details have emerged regarding the status of ROH's television after it was recently revealed weekly shows would air on Honor Club. It seemed Khan was looking for a TV deal that never came to fruition, and the Honor Club announcement was viewed by many as a setback for the company. In the Wrestling Observer newsletter, Dave Meltzer explains, quote, "It should be noted since there are questions about the ROH deal and if Khan shopped it outside of Warner Bros. Discovery. The strong belief is it was not shopped outside Warner Bros. Discovery, although there is no contractual reason he shouldn't, as ROH is a separate company from AEW. Looking at this current state of play for AEW, Meltzer reported, quote, "Right now, the feeling seems to be to stay loyal to WBD for the very important next round of negotiations, which could take place either this year or next year, and have all the different programming ideas, which could include reality shows and the possibility of an all-woman show, All Elite Women, as part of a major new deal, depending on what the sides could come to terms with. At this point, WBD has not picked up any of the new ideas past the reality show that is being filmed right now. They had planned a reality show for 2022 with the second season of Roads to the Top, but with Cody and Brandy Rhodes leaving, that project was shelved as they just started filming the new show, which publicly has not been given a public name in recent months. Looking towards the end of the current AEW WBD deal, Meltzer explains, quote, "AEW's 4-year deal with Warner Bros. Discovery expires at the end of 2023. Warner Bros. Discovery has an option year for Dynamite and probably Rampage, which is believed to have a price escalator as part of the option. So it's possible major new deal negotiations won't happen until 2024, and they would need a new deal for 2025. This loyalty to Warner Bros. Discovery could go some way to explaining why a TV deal wasn't landed elsewhere, which essentially what Meltzer is implying there is Ring of Honor was not shopped to outside of Warner Bros. Discovery, and the reason why is because they don't want to piss off what they've got right now. So Ring of Honor coming to cable television could still happen in the future, but it very much depends on what is going to happen with WBD. That's essentially the status and the explanation that we have right now. One person who's not going to be in AEW next year, of course, is William Regal. He's heading back to WWE, and we've got more details on his AEW contract, and there was actually multiple opt-out clauses in his deal by all accounts. In the current Wrestling Observer newsletter, Dave Meltzer clarified the situation, which, by the way, he got wrong on several occasions. It would appear now he's finally got it right, saying, quote, "Just to clarify the William Regal leaving stuff is that WWE sources were correct that Regal did have an opt-out in February of 2024, but Tony Khan had an opt-out on December of 2022. And I think when he says 24, he probably means 23, because that would be a year pretty much after he signed with the company. So the contract did end before Regal could leave it without Khan's permission, but Regal could have gotten out of it just 2 months later. So again, just to confirm that, because it appears that Dave Meltzer has put a typo in that there. Basically, Regal had an opt-out in February of 2023, February next year. AEW, Tony Khan had an opt-out in December of this year. So basically, he could have left next year in February. He asked Tony Khan, can I leave a little bit earlier? Can you not choose to extend my deal at this point? Tony Khan decided to say yes to that and adhere to Regal's request. It had previously been reported that William Regal's return to WWE will see him take on a vice president role in the company. Meltzer had previously speculated on the nature of the vice president role, suggesting that Regal has a personal coach relationship with a lot of the younger talent in AEW. Tony Khan recently confirmed that Regal will not be able to take on an on-screen role in WWE until around 2024. Regal recently broke his silence on his AEW departure to address many of the rumors floating around, basically suggesting don't believe everything you read or hear. A new streaming deal could be announced imminently for AEW. While there have been rumors about AEW announcing a streaming home for a while, speculation has picked up once again after it was announced that Ring of Honor Television will return to Honor Club. In the latest edition of the Wrestling Observer newsletter, Dave Meltzer noted that AEW and DAZN will soon announce a streaming deal after the holidays. This comes after an AEW logo was shown when DAZN was sharing information on the properties the service will feature in the coming 12 months. Discussing the upcoming announcement, Meltzer writes, quote, DAZN released information on combat sports properties that they will be offering in 2023, and there was an AEW logo. DAZN and AEW are expected to make an official announcement of a deal sometime after the holidays. Not sure of all the details, but the deal will be for AEW television shows to air on DAZN in all countries that DAZN services where AEW doesn't already have a deal in place. Not sure about Japan because AEW shows are on New Japan World. The biggest ones to look will be Spain and Brazil. The deal would only be for AEW content. This is not a deal, which was the reason AEW dropped space in Latin America, but a different deal that hasn't been closed that they're working on for Mexico, Central, and much of South America. So it's not the streaming deal whereby we're going to get this back catalogue of AEW programming, or of the Dynamites, or of the Rampage, or of the pay-per-views. The House Always Wins, that live event that we've still yet to see. That's still to come in the future. We don't really have an update on that, but if we do, of course, we'll discuss it here on the channel. We've got the ratings for the holiday bash edition of AEW Dynamite this past week on TBS, and the Nielsen ratings for the December 21 edition of AEW Dynamite that were released on Thursday afternoon were, to say, a mixed bag, albeit mostly positive news for AEW. According to the reporting from both WrestleNomics and ShowBuzz Daily, Wednesday's night's show, which featured match 5 of the Best of 7 series between the Elite and Death Triangle, as well as Jamie Hayter's first women's title defense against Hikaru Shida, total viewers aged 2 and up increased 1% over the last week to 957,000. 396,000 of those viewers were in the key adults 18 to 49 demographic, which is actually a 7% drop from last week's 428,000. That was good enough for a 0.30 rating in the key demo, which earned Dynamite third place ranking on ShowBuzz Daily's list of the day's cable originals. Only ESPN's college football and basketball programming bested Dynamite among the day's cable originals, with AEW beating the usual competition from The Challenge, Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, and news programming. So again, I think they'll be pretty happy with that still. The other demographics reported by ShowBuzz Daily, the most notable figures may be the increases in female viewership demographics for an episode headlined by a women's title match that we don't have a full picture until quarter-hour ratings become available. The show was up in both women aged 18 to 49 from a 0.19 to a 0.21, an 11% increase, and female viewers aged 12 to 34, a 0.13 to a 0.15, a 15% increase. However, the show was down 13% in men aged 18 to 49 from a 0.46 to a 0.40. In the young adult demo covering people aged 18 to 34, Dynamite was up a little bit from a 0.24 to a 0.25, a 4% increase. Now, these quarter-hour ratings that I spoke about previously For the first time since March 16, St. Patrick's Day Slam edition of Dynamite, where Thunder Rosa dethroned Britt Baker, AEW headlined its flagship show with the company's Women's Championship on the line. Coincidentally, both shows were held at the Freeman Coliseum in San Antonio, Texas, actually, but this is a rare event for AEW because a lot of the time it's something I've wanted, and I know a lot of fans have wanted. We want to see the women in the main events more often and more women's matches. With this departure from the typical formats of AEW programming, a big question was going to be what effect the Jamie Hayter titled events versus Hikaru Shida had on the Nielsen ratings, particularly with the female demographics reported earlier actually being up slightly for the episode. The answer, well, it wasn't really much of a factor in either direction. On Thursday evening, Brandon Thurston reported the quarter-hour numbers on his WrestleNomics Patreon page. Be sure to check it out and subscribe. And though the December 21 edition of Dynamite showed the usual pattern of losing viewers throughout the show, which happens with a lot of wrestling shows, a deeper look shows that the reason was likely the overall trend and not the main event. Q7 and Q8, the quarters featuring the main event, drew 873,000 and 869,000 total viewers, respectively, in the main demographic, with the same quarters respectively drawing 365,000 and 328,000 viewers in the 18 to 49 demo. Compared to the trend across the previous 4 weeks, there was no gain or loss in overall viewers, while Q7 and Q8 respectively saw gains of 3% and 1% above the trend line. So actually they did a little bit better. From quarter hour to quarter hours across the body of the show, only Q5, featuring Jon Moxley versus Darius Martin, increased over the previous quarter, a slight bump from 950 to 952. In the key demo, it was plus 5,000 and plus 4,000, gained a few thousand viewers from quarter to quarter, Q3 and Q4, with those segments mainly consisting of angles, promos, and the conclusion of the match between the Elite and Death Triangle, Hook's squash match, and Jon Moxley's entrance. So a lot of people were trying to sort of imply, well, what does this mean? Did the women draw? Did they not draw? I guess the positive would be they drew just as much as any other main event, which is the point. Like, there's not the drop-off. It's exactly the same, so do it more often. Give the fans a reason to care. And certainly in terms of critically, a lot of people positively spoke about the victory for Jamie Hayter this past week on Dynamite and being one of the best AEW women's matches of the year. And again, a noticeable improvement in quality with Hayter's match against Toni Storm at Full Gear, and now this match on Dynamite Holiday Bash. Jamie Hayter and Hikaru Shida had a killer AEW main event on Dynamite, and Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select has learned more about who helped out with the match. On this week's Fightful's Ask Rhapsody, Will Washington revealed that Ring of Honor veteran BJ Whitmer produced the Shida vs. Hayter match. In addition, he actually produced the positively received Toni Storm vs. Jamie Hayter match from Full Gear. Whitmer has received consistent praise from talent that Fightful has spoken to backstage, but Willow Nightingale also credited Whitmer on the record during her recent interview with Rhapsody. Fightful has heard unanimous positive reception backstage, not just about the main event itself, but Jamie Hayter's title reign in general. In addition, they're also reporting that they've heard a lot of praise about the act surrounding her, with Britt Baker and Rebel also getting a lot of credit for seamlessly transitioning into the spots that they're currently in. Speaking of reports, Miro has been the center of attention this past week when it comes to a lot of reporting about him, and he's called out Dave Meltzer as fans await an update on when former TNT champion Miro is coming back to AEW television. News regarding his future is trending once again online. Now, this all began earlier this week when Miro's wife, CJ Parker, also known as Lana, spoke with 92.7 WMAY and indicated Miro would likely be returning to WWE someday, though she never put a time frame on the return of Rusev Day. The Wrestling Observer Radio's Dave Meltzer would follow up on those statements, given his take on why Miro was absent from television for the majority of this year. Ultimately, the Redeemer was only part of 4 official matches this past year on AEW television. Meltzer claims because it was the pitch AEW President Tony Khan had in store for Miro after last month's Full Gear pay-per-view wasn't something he had much interest in, and that involved him losing, so he's remained off TV since. He added that this has been a problem with various talents who have come over from WWE and are concerned about being presented as someone who loses regularly. It's now apparent that Miro caught wind of the report because he's responded through a tweet this week in an afternoon, asking Meltzer, quote, "What happened between January and June? Now, if we look back, Miro was having a very successful first half of 2022 despite not being able to compete in the ring due to a torn hamstring. He successfully recovered, which is a victory in its own right, but he also began dabbling in creative ventures outside of pro wrestling. Miro was a featured character in CBS's show East New York, which began airing this past fall. The filming schedule required him to live in New York for a few weeks until his portion of the project was complete. Perhaps the most telling is that Miro actually signed a contract extension with AEW last March that added 4 more years onto his contract. As of right now, I'm not sure that Meltzer has responded really officially. I think he just said that his report is what it is, and he believes it. And Sean Ross Sapp had also corroborated his report about possibly some creative issues. So if we get any more details about this social media saga, of course, we'll let you know. Adam Cole has been a name that's been out of action for a while with a very serious concussion, and there's actually now some positive news coming in on the Adam Cole front, but also nothing concrete that fans can truly sink their teeth into. Dave Meltzer was asked on Twitter if there's any health update on Cole, and the Wrestling Observer newsletter editor offered the wrestling world some optimism, saying, quote, "He's doing much better," Meltzer responded. "The last I heard is that they were being cautious, don't have any time frame for a return. With concussions, you can't predict time frame." Now, Cole suffered a major concussion during his fatal 4-way match at Forbidden Door, which featured him, Hangman Adam Page, Kazuchika Okada, and reigning IWGP World Heavyweight Champion Jay White. White retained his title after pinning Cole, who managed to finish the match. This update is indeed good news, as in November, Meltzer noted that people were reportedly concerned about the concussion's effect on Cole's future, and that he could return as soon as tomorrow, but also he could never return. At the time of his concussion, Cole was also dealing with a torn labrum, which back in July, he decided not to undergo surgery for, opting instead for physical therapy. The former Undisputed Era showed up in a big way in AEW for a portion of 2022, but it wasn't only Cole who's dealt with a major injury or a setback. Kyle O'Reilly's been out of action since June after undergoing neck fusion surgery, putting him out of action indefinitely, and Bobby Fish decided not to renew his contract after there was a difference on financial numbers, rendering the Undisputed Elite pretty much done when it comes to AEW programming. And we touched on Michael Mansory earlier on when it came to the new look of AEW in the new year in terms of programming. Well, we've got an update on his aims for the company and ultimately what made his decision to sign with AEW. Speaking to Renee Paquette on the sessions, Mansory detailed what made him want to return to the wrestling industry when signing with AEW, and he said, quote, "Unfinished business. There was definitely unfinished business in I don't know that I left the wrestling business feeling fulfilled. I think when I left WWE, I was burnt out and frustrated. Even after I left WWE, I left and jumped right into Pat's show, but we were also in the middle of a global pandemic, and you didn't really have time to process that I just left a place that I'd spent a third of my life working in, where I grew up as a man. I hadn't had time to process that, nor were the situations going on in life in a place for me to process that. It started to dawn on me there was still a lot more I wanted and have yet to accomplish. Around the summer, I started talks again with AEW. A few folks had reached out. Shout out to AEW Chief Legal Officer Mega Parek. Mega and Tony were pretty inviting right from the jump street. We have an opportunity here. We feel the company is at a threshold of that next level and the next iteration of what AEW is in establishing our identity and everything else in between. They wanted to gauge my interest and see if I would be interested in coming along for the ride. It was a pretty long process, and at that point I said I was interested for sure, but we were getting ready to launch one on Prime Video, and I wanted to give the focus it ultimately deserved. It occupied a lot of my thoughts. We got to the point ultimately as conversations progressed. We were literally packing up our bags to head to the US and going back and forth of what this role would be and what I would do. We came to an accord, and here I am. Now, I said what his goals are for AEW. He said, quote, "I want to contribute. I want to help build something special." That's what AEW is and what AEW has been since its inception. It's a special place. The energy, the vibe is pretty infectious. I was back at full gear days after stepping off the plane from Singapore, and I'm backstage review, seeing the energy, the excitement, the talent have about the product and the company, but also the vibe and the atmosphere. Everyone has been unbelievably welcoming, even on my side of the fence. I'm walking into a production team where some of these folks have been together since WCW. I'm walking into a well-established team already, and I'm just hoping to be able to add whatever they feel I can bring to the table and what I know I can bring to the table. I want to do it all. I know it sounds generic and all-encompassing, but it's true. I want to do it all. I really believe in AEW, the product, the talent, the vision, any sort of entity that's growing. Sometimes you need to bring in an ingredient from the outside to help you. I'm not necessarily saying that I'm going to elevate AEW to the next level. That would be very egotistical egotistical to say. You talk about NXT, I have the same feeling in that. There's so much out there to work with, and everyone is so raw and just waiting for folks to apply the right touches to help these men and women figure out what are the pieces we need to accentuate or the pieces we need to tweak. So the proof will be in the pudding when it comes to Michael Mansory, but we know we've got a new look of AEW coming next year. Eddie Kingston has been a flashpoint this year, and he continues to be so, and he doesn't appear to be a fan of some of the new faces in AEW. Eddie Kingston has some thoughts about the ever-evolving landscape of the AEW locker room. Kingston is of the belief that there are a handful of F-boys coming into AEW and never want to miss an opportunity to dunk on someone. Jay White proclaims that Kingston may himself have started the trend. Eddie Kingston expressed his feelings on the individuals coming into All Elite Wrestling via a tweet on December 22nd, never naming any of the culprits that he proclaimed to be F-boys. Kingston also said that a handful of egomaniacs were quick to text him following his initial declaration. Switchblade Jay White, the reigning and defending IWGP World Heavyweight Champion, took the tweet as a chance to dunk on Kingston, proclaiming him to be one that started the trend, allowing other F-boys to follow. The last time Kingston was in the ring with Switchblade, White would come away with the victory in a tag team match at New Japan's Rumble on 44th Street in October 2022. White would team with Juice Robinson and Eddie Kingston, who have teamed with Kazuchika Okada. Now, we'll have to wait and see if that was legitimate by Eddie Kingston. Again, he's been very outspoken this year. If it's part of an angle for AEW or New Japan. Dax Howard's been pretty outspoken in recent weeks, and he has his new podcast, of course, that's launching soon. And before the podcast officially launched, he's spoken on a variety of topics, one being CM Punk. Now, Howard said about Punk, quote, "Misunderstood, I think. The one motto that I live by is if you're not controversial, then you're not worth remembering." And he's controversial. He's controversial only because he does go against the grain, and he doesn't fall in line. I think, obviously, he's an incredible storyteller. I think he's an incredible athlete. I wish that, and I hope whatever he decides to do, or whatever comes next for him, whether it's in AEW, which I'm hoping it is, or outside, I just hope he finds happiness, because in his life, the life he's had, he deserves it. So he shoots very softly there on CM Punk. Now, during this as well, he had some very cryptic comments about the Young Bucks too. When speaking about the Young Bucks, he said, quote, "I think they are visionaries, I think they are smart, I think they are calculated, whether it's for the good or the bad," Howard told his new co-host Matt Coon. "I think that tag team wrestling owes them a lot. I think Cash and I owe them a lot because they were able to put tag team wrestling on the map, and I think Triple H saw that and said, okay, I've got these two guys over here who are polar opposites of them, but also incredible wrestlers. Let's give them a shot. Let's spotlight tag team wrestling here." And certainly, I think that's quite interesting. Now, when he was asked about the different ideologies, he said, quote, "Whenever Cash and I feel like it's time to fight, and it's the right time to fight, we'll fight. And I think right now is the time to fight," which is very, very cryptic, certainly. What that means, I don't know. You can let me know. Parker Boudreaux is going to be in a faction with Swerve Strickland and Rick Ross this past week after he and Brandon Gutzman attacked Keith Lee for Swerve Strickland, allowing Strickland later to hit a double stomp through a cinder block on Lee's body. It appears AEW has formed a new faction with the three men called Mogul Affiliates. However, the question of Boudreaux's status with the Trustbusters is in question due to his new partnership. Now, Daivari tweeted out, quote, "Parker will be a trustbuster for life. I personally brought him to AEW to smash this roster. Tonight, he took down one of the biggest guys here. Remember, kids, money always talks. Thanks, Swerve. Hashtag AEW Dynamite. Hashtag Trustbusters." Boudreaux has since retweeted this, signifying he agrees with Daivari's statement. Now, it must be said, I thought that Boudreaux's attack on Dynamite was awful. But he's still green, and hopefully he can get better. Rampage last night was the Holiday Bash edition of the show on TNT, and AR Fox and Top Flight scored a nice Christmas bonus on the December 23rd episode of AEW Rampage. The show kicked off with the $300,000 Three Kings Christmas Casino Battle Royale, where the winning team would earn a $300,000 cash prize. In addition to the reward, the match was also noteworthy because it marked the AEW debut of Dralistico, who competed alongside his La Faction Igobernable stablemates Roosh and Preston Vance. Dralistico, who often wrestles for AAA, teamed up with Roosh in a losing effort against Fox and Christian at the Ring of Honor Final Battle event. The match included Best Friends, the Blackpool Combat Club, Dark Order, La Faction Igobernable, SAP, Ari Daivari and the Varsity Athletes, and the Butcher, the Blade, and Kip Sabian. In the end, after Page helped out to take Jon Moxley, Fox and Top Flight last eliminated Blackpool Combat Club's Claudio Castagnoli to win the match, and the amount of money indeed. But this has now led to a match this coming Wednesday on Dynamite's New Year's Smash show. Jon Moxley will be in action on the December 28 episode of Dynamite. As announced on the December 23rd episode of Rampage, Moxley will team up with Ring of Honor World Champion Claudio Castagnoli to face Top Flight. Of course, Moxley defeated Darius on the December 21 episode of Dynamite. The two teams then clashed in last night's episode of AEW Rampage as they competed in the Trios Casino Battle Royale. Thanks to some interference from Hangman Page, Top Flight alongside AR Fox eliminated Moxley and went on to win the match. The broadcast team later announced that Moxley and Castagnoli will face Top Flight on Wednesday. So that match will indeed be taking place. Let's talk about some new pay-per-view trademarks as well. AEW has maintained pretty much the same calendar of quarterly pay-per-view events since its inception. Back in 2019, Double or Nothing, All Out, Full Gear, Revolution. However, could a new event titled AEW Wrestle Bowl or AEW Wrestling Bowl join the promotion's yearly pay-per-view lineup? According to Fightful, AEW filed to trademark the terms Wrestle Bowl and Wrestling Bowl on December 19, with both terms being registered with the intent of covering the categories of conducting entertainment exhibitions in the nature of wrestling exhibits and performances by professional wrestlers. There have also been other signs that AEW is doing away with the full pay-per-view format. Of course, this past year we saw the Forbidden Door pay-per-view, and Tony Khan has also said recently he's almost certain of Forbidden Door 2 taking place in 2023, which would mean a permanent change to AEW's annual events calendar, being 5 pay-per-views and possibly a 6 if Wrestle Bowl is added. Furthermore, Khan recently confirmed that WWE Hall of Famer Jeff Jarrett joining AEW as Director of Business Development was a strategic move to add more live events to AEW's annual calendar. Khan also hinted that Jarrett's hiring could mean more pay-per-view events, saying, quote, "I think in 2023 I would love to expand our content, and we have such a great roster," Khan told Busted Open Radio last month. "I think I can utilize the people on the roster even more, and there's ways we can do that by expanding our content, doing more shows, and I do think live events is something we could do more of, and we have the potential to do that." AEW is also set to host its first ever event in London in 2023. However, the promotion has yet to announce the date, venue, or further details on the event. There has been speculation that AEW's UK debut could lead to a new annual pay-per-view event. It's been speculated that would take place at Craven Cottage. Of course, the Khan family own Fulham Football Club. They also own that stadium. And most likely, if that would be the case, you would probably think it would take place over the summer months. Finally, we have an update on Jeff Hardy's legal situation. The pre-trial hearing of Jeff Hardy for his DUI arrest in June has been delayed so many times, it might as well, I don't know what you would call it at this point. 3 times now, the date for Hardy's pre-trial hearing has come and gone without a peep. And a motion this week revealed that Hardy was looking to delay the hearing for a 4th time, and apparently he has succeeded. PW Insider is reporting that the motion by Hardy's defense to delay the hearing, which went unopposed by the prosecution, has been granted. The 5th attempt at a pre-trial hearing for the charismatic Enigma is now scheduled for January 23, 2023. The motion came due to Hardy's defense, led by lawyer Brian T. Coughlin, requesting more time to examine perceived anomalies reflected to maintenance records of breath analysis device that was administered to Hardy at the time of his arrest. Coughlin was also seeking to take depositions from officers who maintained said device. Hardy was arrested the morning after appearing at a wrestling convention with his brother, AEW star Matt Hardy. A video later surfaced that appeared to show Hardy drinking at the event. This was Hardy's 3rd arrest for DUI in a 3-year period, and his blood alcohol levels were reported to be 3 times over the legal limit. He would later plead not guilty to all charges. Hardy's action led to AEW owner Tony Khan suspending him days later, as well as stipulating his suspension would only end after he completed rehab and maintained sobriety for an undisclosed amount of time. Khan would later go as far to say that rehab would be Hardy's last chance in wrestling. The AEW star reportedly did seek treatment later in the summer. So there you go. Once we have more details as to when this hearing is going to take place, what happened in the hearing, we'll let you know here on the channel. What a mammoth show, guys. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe bottom right hand corner. Let me know your thoughts on today's AEW news stories. Have a happy holidays, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.